Good evening, everybody, and welcome to One World, One Blood Bowl. And welcome to
Episode.
One World,
Good
One
evening,
Blood Bowl.
everybody,
And welcome to
episode.
123. Sorry, I was getting some feedback there. Which I've subtitled "Is Bob's Knob Packed Away?" Which is obviously what I mean by that. Is let's talk about Black Orcs, Bobs, Imperial Nobility, Knobs, Chaos Renegades or Pact as they used to be, and Old World Alliance, which I've tortuously fitted into away for OWA, just so I could do that very bad pun. They are the four races that are going to be brand new in Blood Bowl 3 that haven't been in Blood Bowl 2. They have been available on Fumble for a long time, and they are right now. Some of them weren't new, but they're slightly changed in the versions that we knew from the 2016 rulebook. Some came with the obviously second season, or 2020 as we tend to call it, Blood Bowl. They came in the box, and people have been playing with them a lot since then. But lots of people in Blood Bowl 2 have never seen them. So I want to talk about those four races in particular, and through that, probably just how we adjust to a new race, to something new, or are they? There's a famously happy with themselves streamer that would tell you that every piece is the same. There are no races, just different statistics and different skills. But these are new, and they are bringing some different things to the table, and I want to talk about those. I have three lovely, lovely people with me here today. First of all, returning, we have Purplegoo, one of the finest blood bowlers to ever draw breath, one of Team England's mainstays for many years, also known in the NAF presidency, and he was tournament director and things like that. I don't know which of those jobs you've swapped about, but you've been involved with the NAF. Famous also for his online exploits on Fumble, but he was just telling us earlier that he's never ever touched Blood Bowl 2, but he did play in the Chaos edition, he thinks, of Blood Bowl 1, even if only just dipping a toe in. But certainly he knows his Blood Bowl. He's got a great brain for the theory and practice of the Blood Bowls. And I have noticed that he's been playing Imperial Alliance in the White Owl League recently on Fumble. And I'm finding them quite interesting, so I want to talk to him a lot about them. How's your Blood Bowl, Phil? How's things hanging for you in 23?
Blood Bowl's pretty good so far, actually. I have been playing Nobility in the White Owl League. Uh, I played a game in the Yern this morning, which for those who don't know, the British League on Fumble, we play against the Australian League once a year in sort of a playoff, and five coaches from each that have done pretty well that year play off against each other. So I played my game in that this morning. Dave, of course, Purple Jest, has been dominating the British League for a good year now. So he played his game earlier in the year. It's nice to get a bit. It's nice to get a bit back in. A bit of reciprocal praise, Dave, every so often. So I've been enjoying that. And the other thing I've been enjoying so far in 23 even, is so I'm playing in something called the Super League on Fumble, which those of you that are familiar with the Tackle Zone League, it's another version of that, but it's not a Swiss going into a knockout. It's a proper league season. And the beauty of this is that it's a resurrection league season that the rules change for every year. So there's promotion and relegation into a new resurrection bucket, and I'm really enjoying that. I think that's a really nice format on Fumble. It's probably some of the most competitive Blood Bowl I've played on the internet for quite some time. I'm
And
enjoying
is,
that.
I mean, is that very much where your focus is at the moment? Is NAF style and that modus operandi rather than the progression and teams that grow and gain skills?
Yeah, I think it's split. Actually, it's split quite evenly. I played a couple of games in the Black Box Trophy so far in January. So for me, a couple of games is literally a couple of games, and that's a pretty good return in a month. So between that, the White Isle League, and that Super League, that's most of my Blood Bowl at the moment.
Are you planning to do a full run? Are you going to get the 60 games in by the end of the 4 months?
Absolutely no chance, zero. But I find it good practice to sling something in and then see. I'm a little bit hesitant to expose myself to too much bombing as well. So maybe I'd get to five without the bombing, and maybe I'll get to three with.
Well, I mean, and by bombing, are we talking about the Cindy and dribble?
Yeah,
The terrible
I
twosome.
find. Yeah, I mean, I know that there is a school of thought on Fumble with some people who shall remain nameless that Black Box is the sort of pure beautiful. The scheduler, so spinning, the equivalent of spinning in Blood Bowl 2, as I understand the lingo. That is the pure sort of hardcore thing. I think as long as you're selecting fair enough games in the section of Fumble where you can select your opponent, I think I'd probably fall back on that to avoid the sort of everybody's got 50k in the bank to bomb each other scenario.
Yeah, it does seem to be what's happening a lot at the moment. I mean, Krista said before, Fumble Krista, that when it comes to particularly competitive players, the stats between competitive, open division and the scheduler, it's indistinguishable in terms of sort of win rates for races and things.
Mm.
If you're selecting fair games or if you're taking what games you can get, you end up with what you end up with usually. The Is there anything we can do about the Bombers?
There's nothing that Krista should do about the Bombers. So Krista is, absolutely dead set of playing the rules by the rules, and I salute him for that. And he's done exactly the right thing. Would I press a little button that made that problem go away? Yes, I would personally, but I completely understand why he's done what he's done. I wouldn't
So
change him.
for now, we as the users have to beware. We have to be looking out for. Hang on, he's got 50k. I can expect the bomber to come.
I think so. I think you assume that if you schedule a pickup game with somebody and they've got 50k sitting there, they're gonna hire it, and then you can only be pleasantly surprised from there.
Is it really that good?
I don't
Yes.
know. I don't know if it's so. I don't know if it's that good. It's certainly top tier, excellent. But more important than that, it's obnoxious. And and I don't mean obnoxious because people have done it or those people are obnoxious. The mechanic of having the bomber in the game, I find obnoxious because I feel like I'm not necessarily playing Blood Bowl so much. I think I've seen Krista himself say something along the lines of the game becomes 10 guys defending a bomber and a bomber throwing bombs rather than the cerebral Blood Bowl that we all like to pretend that we're playing.
It's also a very high variance machine, isn't it? I mean, on both sides. Even though throwing bombs doesn't blow you up anymore. I mean, if it does blow you up, that's not a turnover anymore. So you can alter where in your risk profile you're putting it in, which is another huge factor as well as the fact they're more accurate. But it's also just the hugely high variance. You can be incredibly well defended and suddenly 4 players can be taken out by a rogue bomb. Very very hard to mitigate.
100%. I mean, like, I don't know how I didn't mean to get down this segue, but
No, no,
I think
no
I
such thing.
think the very good players, I'm sure, are still the very good players, regardless of whether this exists or not. And I'm sure their win rate is no different. But is it the sort of bowl you want to spend your very precious free time playing? I'm convinced.
I mean, to me, it would be the endless fight of one-turners. I think that's something that I know is rearing its head again, and it does worry me. I don't want to play Blood Bowl when not playing Blood Bowl. Running away for one half and then one turning, and then running away for the second half and one turning is how the Blood Bowl's done. I'm not blaming the coaches at all. I'm blaming a rule
No.
set that allows it. Coaches do whatever
Well,
they can do to win, and we have store, on the show to prove that. But it's we have to look at a way of making people play the Blood Bowl. It's to me it's taking the decisions minute to minute. It's the scrum. It's what's my activation order. What's my risk profile. That's where Blood Bowl is fun. I hope not just how do I design something that is unbeatable and then I just sit there and laugh for an hour. Interesting. Yeah. As I said, I think it's fascinating having you here. Your mind looking at these 4 is going to be very very useful to me. But he's getting restless because he's a younger man. So let's talk quickly to Day Day. Hello.
Hello.
And bringing the fresh perspective, the new outlook upon the tired, jaded eyes, perhaps, of myself and the other purple, the better purple when it comes to Blood Bowl. Not the best at purple at Blood Bowl on my own show. It's terrible, isn't it? The second best purple here at Blood Bowl. Day Day, welcome to One World One Blood Bowl. Nice to have you on.
Well, thank you.
What have you been up to at Blood Bowl lately?
Actually, not a lot apart from the games that I've been playing on Blood Bowl 2. My tabletop league is just in between seasons right now, and I don't play a lot on Fumble. I have started in one just a couple of mates messing around sort of league, but it's not really. That's like very very infrequent.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm kind of at that point now where I think with Blood Bowl 3 coming out as well, I'm at that precipice where I'm like gearing up sort of thing, and yeah, it's been interesting, I think.
In your league, you were coaching some Black Orcs, weren't you?
Yeah, so I actually came in halfway through the league because someone else dropped out. Because originally there was something that happened, but basically I couldn't go because of a university commitment, and then that changed, and I was able to come back in. So I was playing down like 300-400 TV with Black Orcs for half a season, and it was an interesting experience actually. I would almost say that I enjoyed it.
Wow.
But
Almost.
Yeah. Well, we'll come on to
see.
those a bit more in depth, a bit more specifically
Yeah.
in a minute. And you've taken up streaming.
I have, yes.
Now, your partner, I believe, has been streaming to great success for quite a while.
She's much better at it than
Well
me.
known
yes,
and
she is.
notorious on the scene. So, wherever did you get the idea?
Well, basically, she started playing a lot of Blood Bowl because she was joining in with some of the leagues that we had, and then she became much more prominent in the Blood Bowl scene on Twitch. And then she worked out that, while she does like playing Blood Bowl, she also wants to stream other games. And what I kind of selfishly missed from that is the playing Blood Bowl and just chatting to people. Because I think that's the element I like most about it from the streaming point of view. I just like, if it's going well or if it's going badly, there's someone to talk to. And it's why I prefer tabletop over online in most formats anyway, because there's always a human that I'm speaking to. So the streaming kind of, for me, takes that hole a little bit. I'm careful of my wording here. But
Yeah, I mean, there are
fulfills
obviously
it.
there's games in every tournament or every league where the person opposite is your opponent, and they are your opponent throughout the game. But there's so many games where halfway through that ceases to really be the case.
Yeah.
The game's been decided or something, and you're chatting with a mate whilst playing a game together.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
tabletop, I find, can exist in both of those ways. You were very quick in your praise for Dizzy, as obviously Dizzy Bess as a fantastic streamer. Who's better at Blood Bowl?
Me. It's easily me. Look at anyone
Is
can
she
pull up our
watching,
record.
or-
She might be, I don't know.
Easily, and so
Easily me.
quick.
Easily me.
Not even a
Like,
moment's
it's not
thought
even-
or consideration.
It's not even close. She just plays halflings a lot to save the embarrassment, so she can say she's been playing halflings, and that's the excuse.
Yeah. So I've lost.
no.
Oh, because I'm halflings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Come
she's
across those.
I do think it's me, but it's I think she's closer than I'd like to admit.
Is it okay that I've asked, do you think? Is that going to be a problem tonight?
I don't know. I'll tell you in about an hour or so. My voice just went then. I'm actually she's outside the door, like threatening me off camera. You can't see it.
Let's hope it's locked.
No, it's completely fine. She's it's always an interesting matchup, but we don't actually play each other very often. We actually we very rarely have a casual game because we're off to a tournament or we're playing online or something like that. It's actually we've only played each other a handful of times, and the last time I completely diced her. So.
Well, I mean, I'd be horrified with the idea of anyone in my house playing me at Blood Bowl. I just the idea of not being the best in your own home at Blood Bowl wouldn't that be a worry?
Well, it's not something I have to consider at the moment, as I said. No, not really. Me and Dizzy we met through gaming, but other games sort of thing. We're naturally very competitive with each other, so it's just another game we're competitive at.
Great. Let me move on because, as someone has said in the chat, they came on. The first thing they saw was store, and they went store. So store. Hello.
Hello.
Lovely to have you on. Massively effusive, as you do tend to be. I characterised you as there used to be a guy. I don't know if you remember, Phil, on Fumble called Silly Sod.
Do.
Yeah, lovely American fella, and I felt he had a similar brain to yours. He never saw a rule set, a meta, a tournament, or a system he didn't want to pick apart and find a way to break it. Is that wrong of me? Am I right? Have you got that mind? You like unpicking the problem, finding an answer, and testing and pushing?
I certainly do like pushing around players on rosters and see what I can get. Like last year, I played a lot of different races at tournaments, but always trying to arrange it as such that I never play a race at a tournament where the race doesn't get at least something to be competitive.
So it's
Like a
finding
Black
those
Orcs.
niches where you think, oh, hang on, that's got an extra. I could just do this and it would work. It would make that team something that could compete with, a dark
Yeah,
elf with 4 blodge.
yeah. So, for example, I wouldn't play like ogres in a rule set without stars or something. So I played ogres on a tournament where I got Griff and some block ogres, and then played other races in like World Cup formats where they perform very well. So that's definitely interesting.
And
And
is that what's grabbing you in Blood Bowl? Because I mean, you play across everything in Blood Bowl, don't you? You play tabletop, you play Fumble, you've played Blood Bowl 2, you stream. So what's keeping you in Blood Bowl right now? What's getting you up and
oh,
thinking
and
Blood
I
Bowl?
I just love the game. It's always interesting, always different. I really like it, and I like most formats. Although I have taken a step back from Black Box for the same reason that Phil mentioned. I don't like Bomber, and so mostly playing Rookie Royal Rumbles on Fumble and the occasional league game like Super League and TSD. Although, well, picking Vems for Super League wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, they're not right at the moment, are they?
I I I picked them because I like them. I had a lot of fun playing them in a Rookie Royal Rumble and on tabletop. But maybe 6 Vems wasn't a good idea
Famously,
in a rule
Tara
set where you
Barella
don't get a lot.
arrived on Fumble and started doing 6 vamps when no one had done it before. And it completely dominated the way vampires were played for the next 2 or 3 years because it changed how everyone's mind. Whether that can be accessible in a NAF format, I don't know. Pro's much better now, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and I mean, Vems are not great, but they can do a lot sometimes. Sometimes they fall apart, and I do think that animal savagery is a pretty big buff because they do what you want them to do. The only problem is that when your team falls apart and you don't have enough players, then it pretty quickly goes wrong because then you can't guarantee anymore that the vampire is doing what they want. But ideally, you won the game when that point arrives.
So it's another example of you have to win before there is no team left to either win or defend your lead with.
Yeah, at least that's my experience with them.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, you're someone whose mind on Blood Bowl I trust, and I am interested in your opinions, particularly on these 4 races. Now, I did set you a challenge before. We're going to go very analog now. I've asked you to have a pen and a piece of paper. If we have that available, I'm going to take
Yeah.
part 2. Of these 4 races, I don't know if you're Sesame Street fans, but forgive me. One of these kids is doing their own thing. One of these kids is not the same. One of these 4 has a good win rate. Now it's time to play our game. Won't you play our game? So I just want you to write down which of these 4, is it a Bob, is it Nob, is it OWA, or is it Pact? Which of those 4 is just fine? And when I say decent win rate, it is in
With what format?
both the NAF statistics for 2022 and Fumble competitive statistics involving both the scheduler and some open play in 2022. The second thing I'm going to ask you to write down is which of those 4 comes bottom in both of those. Not bottom of the whole rankings, that's obviously Goblins, who are still in huge trouble. We did a whole episode about it. But which of these 4 is going to be the lowest in both the Fumble stats and the NAF stats?
2 things quickly. Firstly, have we got copyright issues because of your sing along? And secondly, when you say just fine, you mean top of the 4, do you?
Yeah.
Which is,
I mean, and I'm going to prove to you that I think they're doing all right.
I'm
Not
sure you will.
great.
I'm just
Not
checking.
not great. But
I mean, I do
all
know.
right.
I do know what Krista said, that we need more games with that one particular race in the Black Box Trophy.
And if you want to play this at home, it's time to write your answers down now.
The embarrassment
Talking of
this
Krista,
is
whilst we were
absolutely-
chatting earlier, he did mention that Krista is looking very hard at what should be done about. You can't just say that's a star that we don't want anymore because Fumble wants to stay rules compliant. but they are looking at this new mega star or superstar or broken star or whatever they're calling them, and thinking, should it be that we either tax them or ban them from competitive, because they are certainly seem to be game breaking, even by Games Workshop. I think that's the admission we sort of got with that movement to a new tier of star. Or should they be taxed higher? I mean, perhaps, Games Workshop could just do them better or reprice them. That would be another way forwards. Right, I'm going to ask you to hold up either the entire thing or certainly your first answer simultaneously on 3, 2, 1. Who's doing fine? Oh, of course, we haven't got focus. Phil says OWA. Store says OWA. Mine, if you could read anything, does say OWA. Day, what have you got in first
Mine
place?
also OWA.
It is OWA. Who's host? Who's down the bottom?
Oh, I've put Bob's, but maybe I'm wrong. Am I wrong?
This just so hasn't worked because of focus. Yeah, it's Black Orcs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Black Orcs.
What?
It is Black Orcs. So let me just pull up some statistics to show you that. That worked really well, didn't it? We
Linear feature, blurry writing.
don't have them. Where are they? There we go. So if I move from that page to this page, this is the win percentages from NAF. Obviously, as we expect, Underworld Denizens at the top, then Amazon, then High Elf, then Dark Elf, then Tomb Kings, then Old World Alliance coming in 6th position. Then Wood Elves, Bretonnians, Shambling Undead, Slan, Dwarves, Skaven, Elven Union, Chaos Dwarf, Orcs, Dungeon Bowls, Lizard Men, Norse, Necromantic, Chaos Renegades, Snotling, Humans, Khorns, Imperial Nobility, Halfling, Vampires, Chaos Chosen, Nurgle, Black Orcs, just ahead of Ogres and Goblins. If we go to the this must be the fumble data that I've been given. Then we see Underworld our top, Shambling Undead 2nd, Amazon's 3rd, Orcs 4th, Dwarves 5th, Chaos Dwarf 7th, and Old World Alliance come in 8th position, or 7th position, isn't it? Because they're slightly renumbered. Yeah, it's not. It's in position 2, but it is number 1. So 7th Old World Alliance. Then we get Norse, Tomb Kings, Necromantic Horror, Wood Elf, Dark Elf, High Elf, Skaven, Snotling, Human, Elven Union, and then the rest all pack up. In 18th Imperial Nobility, 19th Lizardmen, 20th Chaos Renegades, and then the Black Orcs ahead of Nurgle, Ogre, Chaos Chosen, Khorn, Halfling, Vampires, and Goblins. Gentlemen, are we surprised not only that Old World Alliance are top, but that they're top by quite a distance? They're doing all right. They're fine.
Yeah, my head explodes seeing that. So if you've got Lizardmen in 19th,
Yeah,
and Old World Alliance all the way up there, my head explodes somewhat.
Old World Alliance have a tree man.
Yeah.
They do. So my experience with the new version of Old World Alliance is...
let's talk about that. So we're talking just the new Old World Alliance. What's good, what's bad, why are they doing okay?
So I played them at one 4-day tournament. 4-game tournament. And I've never been so exhausted after a tournament in my life. I just found them so... you had to give every drop of myself to get a tune out of them, with all the loner and the dwarf blockers not being dwarves but
Gnomes,
crap little dwarves, whatever they are.
Yep.
Just relying on some pretty average humans to get away with it and do things. But appreciating that the treatment, I think, at low TV is great. To see them have that level of success over what isn't, I mean, it's not a massive data set, but it's not a tiny data set.
I mean, on Fumble, I think we'll find a lot of that's coming from the first 15 games on teams, from things like the Black Box Trophy runs. So we are talking very low TV even there. Is that the secret to why we're seeing them do well?
Well, I think it must be. I mean, they can't be any good at mid to high TV, can they? Because they're humans with some crap dwarves.
Yeah, all of whom have loner. But I mean, once the dwarves get some skills, Store, what do you think?
I think I don't really understand how they're so good in progression, but maybe it's because good coaches are playing them. In NAF style, when you get the right skills and maybe a good star, then you can achieve quite a bit. Like last year, played against someone with Griff Old World Alliance, and well, Griff is pretty good, turns out. And I played them in one tournament with the White Dwarf, which was pretty alright. Won the tournament, but it was only a Belgian tournament, so it doesn't really count.
I mean, I've always liked the White Dwarf, the way he's like a Swiss Army star, isn't he? He gives skills out to all sorts of people, so he can really make up for whatever you need on that particular turn, as well as being quite decent, in the mix himself.
Yeah.
Is that perhaps it, that they're getting tiered in a way that allows you to hire stars to put a decent rule pack onto them to make up for some of those problems?
Yeah, if you get a few skills and get a star in and leave the stupid gnomes out, then they can do quite all right.
And obviously, chat is full of the tree being OP. Is
Yeah.
it the tree? Is the tree the answer? Can it be a tree?
tree man
Is
makes
that...
every team better by country mile.
I think
Just by
OP.
being
That's why
better.
halflings are the best, because they have 2 tree men.
Well, they did beat Black Orcs.
Well, I know you're incredibly gifted with halfling store, but Phil, is it the tree?
I mean, it must be something, right? So I like the star player theory, but in tournaments where you're allowed a star player, and I don't go to too many of those, or the ones that I do go to, they sort of heavily penalise the star players. Everybody's got a OP star player to lean on, so I don't know whether Old World Alliance are particularly in a class where they can get away with outperforming. I think the tree is great. I think actually one thing that links these 4 races together that we're talking about today is that they're all painful to play against and a bit painful to play with, actually.
Oh yes.
And I wonder
Yeah.
whether pain that you find when you're playing against Old World Alliance. So I found them quite difficult to play against, even if they're just lining up, right? Because you've got some crap dwarves with guard, you've got a treeman. Getting around there is problematic, and even when you do get around there, they've got a bit of pace with a human catcher or the dwarf runner or whatever. They are actually a bit of a pain to line up against, just by doing nothing, just by being there. And I wonder if that is helpful at very low TV.
So is it the variety of questions? I was talking about this in a coaching session not earlier today, actually. Is it the variety of different questions that are being posed, even if they're not doing anything? I've got to deal with that incredibly fast piece. I've got to deal with those really solid pieces up in my face. What about that huge, strong piece? And I'm trying to solve all of those problems every turn if I'm facing them. Perhaps sort of bemusing less experienced coaches.
Yeah, perhaps. I think they are quite an effective wall rather than a whole bunch of different problems. So when we get onto nobility are a huge bunch of different problems, right? I think Old World Alliance is a treeman and 3 or 4 dwarves with guard. That's quite a wall to get around for a newer coach, perhaps.
I think also, like, I look at the win rate and I probably think it might just be a combination of a load of little things. So, like you said, good coaches are playing them. They've got new things. I even think there might even be a tiny psychological thing as a newer player who's not as experienced as some of the people out there. But I have to keep reminding myself that the dwarves don't have, like, all their skills on this. Like, the blocker gets armbar and brawler, not block tackle. But in my head, I see a dwarf and I go, oh, that's what I'm going to be up against. So I look at it, like, even the fact that they've got the halfling, and you can get your cheeky 1-turn attempts in there even if it has gone terrible. And I just wonder if it's a load of little factors that maybe contribute and drag them up a little bit each one, and then
he's a natural home for a sneaky git as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
Which is definitely not problematic as a skill in any way. And
Yeah,
it's lovely when your opponent's got it.
My experience with these is only playing against them, and I had the same issue that you just mentioned. Like, the tree basically goes, I'm going to control the center of the board, and the other pieces are fast enough to cover if you do go around the side. That was my experience against them anyway, and that's what I struggled with them.
Fascinating. Store, how do you beat them? How do we beat them?
Old World Alliance.
Yeah, where's their weakness?
Play elves and win.
Well, I mean that's true in every tournament at all times. But what specifically should we be looking for if we're facing them? Do you think? Because they're rocking a very high win percentage. I wouldn't have picked them as top half, and they're top quarter. So
Well, ideally you have someone you stick on the tree and leave him alone, and then the rest of the team doesn't have that much fighting power. So if you're like a strong team, a bash team of some sort, then it's like with most teams, choose your battles and win. And if you can separate the tree and then bang on the other men's, then you're quite all right. And I feel with elves, it's a pretty good matchup because they don't have the natural tackle, so you can dodge away however you want. You just need to be a bit careful because of the fouling that's gonna come.
I thought for a minute you were going to say armbar. Don't we need to be a bit careful because of armbar?
Do,
When it comes to
because
dodging,
every
doesn't that
time
put the fear into elves?
when you're coaching Old World Alliance, you should definitely say as they dodge away, "I have got armbar. Are you sure?" Definitely get that in there every time.
I mean, I have the pieces to make them from various different races, and it never tempted me. I always thought, well, they look awful. But some people are out there rocking these win rates with them, and I don't know how they're doing it. Anyone got any insights? Is it the stars? Is it the rule sets? Is it the
I think
coaches?
Day made a good point. I think it could be a combination of a lot of little things. I think perhaps they're not being particularly accurately tiered yet. Maybe we're not far enough into the new rule set to know exactly where they should live, and as such, they're getting a little bit too much. I think it could be good coaches playing them, and I think he's also right that you see a dwarf and you think a dwarf. I've been playing against dwarves for 15 years. I know what they do, and rewiring your brain is actually quite difficult. I think your question as to how do you beat them, in some cases they beat themselves, right? They don't have the skills that you think they've got. They're not all
Yeah.
block, tackle, etc., etc. And yeah, that is still a human runner, thrower. He is he's good, but he's not got a war dancer.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just get in their face and wait for them to roll turnovers and not being able to reroll them and stuff. But I also think that in enough style, when they get a lot of skills and can take a star and still get a skill or a lot of skills, like in the Euroball and World Cup rules,
Yeah.
then it's actually not that easy to force these turnovers because you have your lineman with block, you have a blitzer who's agile, and you have a catcher you can run away with.
So they've got
I mean,
speed, they've got stability, and as long as they use them in the right times, they've actually got quite an interesting set of different skills that they can answer different problems with.
yeah.
Sounds really tempting. Thank God they've all got a loner, eh?
I wonder if also there's a bit like you said, PC, like you're not tempted by them. Like you could put the team together, but it doesn't appeal to you. And for me, at least, when I've been playing Blood Bowl and trying to improve, it's based off experience, both playing as them and against them. So if there's not a lot of people playing, as them, and it's or there's not a lot of people who have played as them, perhaps more importantly, you don't know what you're looking for. Like you might come up against it if you're a newer coach, having no experience against this team. You've got no idea what to do, and you haven't got that. Oh, I've played this team, so I know what I didn't like when I played that, so I'll force that angle.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I think that maybe plays a small part in it as well.
It's tricky. I mean, I think one of the reasons I don't play them is they make me very sad. I look at the dwarves and I think that's going to happen to dwarves one day, and that makes me frightened and sad. But there's just nothing there that I think, oh, hang on, I'd really be able to do this, and I just don't see the angle. So perhaps I need to get beaten by them, robustly a couple of times, because certainly that happened with Bretonians, and it made me want to coach Bretonians. And then, of course, they died, and we were replacing them with Imperial Nobility, the nobs. Are they any good?
No.
They're not rocking the win stats, so why am I finding them very difficult to beat when I'm coaching as dwarves? And what is it I need to be coaching that beats them easily? Because they frustrate me and I don't like them.
Because they stand in the way, and then you can't get past them.
Yes,
and then you're
I've
slow.
noticed that.
They're certainly not very good, but they are so sexy. I love nobility. They are. They're all the things. If you could tick all the boxes that make me excited, they all fit. Like they're not very good. They very occasionally get too much in a rule set, and you go, "Oh, I could make these good." Actually, in the way that Store was talking about earlier, they have a mechanism by which you can be extremely passive, and while you're being extremely passive, you can set your opponent all kinds of problems. And then eventually they all explode, and you get to complain about your game because all your players went away immediately. They are the perfect combination. Oh, and the last thing is they start with skills you would never give a Blood Bowl player. That's always great. Got Fend and running pass, and that's nonsense. Players shouldn't have that. It's terrific that they do, and that they exist is a wonderful thing.
You coached them for a long time in the Whitetail League. I mean, for a long time comparatively. Those seasons click through reasonably quickly there. Did you actually use running pass? Are you telling me that's a skill? You can look me in the eye and say, I got use of running pass.
I don't think I could look you in the eye. I mean, maybe once. I think I've played 50 odd games with nobility, and maybe I've used it once. Maybe on a turn 8, where I just had to just for fun. But that it exists is the beauty of it. I mean, they are toilet. They are poor.
So why are they poor? Because surely they've got. I mean, yes, they lost from the change from Bretonians, which most people compare them to, deeply unfairly, because obviously they're a completely different team with no similarity really. They have the same line people, don't they? That have Fend and dirt cheap. Yes.
I
Well,
mean, actually,
not
45. They're all very expensive nobility.
They are, aren't they? It's one of the issues that when you put the roster together, all the bits are actually a little bit more than you expect them to be.
and more than they used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've actually gone up from 40 to 45, haven't they? From a peasant to whatever they're called on nobility. But then instead of just the blockers that came with Wrestle, they now come with Wrestle and Stand Firm. Isn't that an
And
awesome
are more
upgrade?
expensive because of that.
Right, so we're paying for that Stand Firm. But it's
Yeah.
And they are. I mean, so I never played with Bretonians, so I don't know quite how these guys are, but they are still armor 8. So they've got that thing like when you coach Skaven, you think, oh, brilliant, I'll put this Storm Vermin in here because he's indestructible, he's armor 8, and then you very quickly remember that armor 8 isn't indestructible. Those stand firm guys do go away very often.
But I mean, Wrestle, Stand Firm, and then you can throw in Naff, you can throw Guard on them. I imagine that's the natural first skill up in progression as well. Aren't they then done? Wrestle, Stand Firm, Guard, what a piece.
That's one of the things that I've because I've not played them, but I've worried about because you'd think you would put guard on them, and guard stand firm is fine, but the fact that they've got wrestle means they won't have. You probably won't give them block because you'll think they've got wrestle, and it's like you want to be standing up for stand firm and guard, and I don't know, I haven't played them, so you might be about to say no, you're completely wrong, Day, and that'd be fine. But it's always an interaction that I've looked at and just gone, if you get what I mean, it's not bad, it's not terrible, but it's not what I'd like. I don't want them on the ground. I want stand firm guards stood up.
And then you've got your 2 knights, haven't you? Or whatever they're being called nowadays, blitzers. That's a drop from, there were 4 in Bretonians, and that they're still terrible Bretonians. So isn't dropping to 2, doesn't it make them trash tier, or are they good enough to get it done with just 2 of them? They're natural homes to blodge, aren't they? When you see them in NAF, they're really often blodged up. And they are quite fast, I think move 7.
Yeah, they are. The whole of the rest of the team exists to unleash those 2 guys for the one turn where they absolutely need to do a thing, whether it's on offense or defense. There comes a turn where those guys have to either run away or get stuck in. The point of all the rest of them is to survive long enough for that to happen.
Yeah, but sadly they don't have Dauntless anymore, which actually is pretty annoying if you're used to the old Bretonians, and now you only have half of the blitzes, and the blitzes were the ones that made the team at least somewhat good. And now you only have 2, and they don't even have Dauntless. And you're quite often especially in this iteration of the game, run into teams that have strong players, and then you only have a bit of guard and maybe an ogre that doesn't do what you want in the turn where he has to do.
Yeah, so
So,
dropping a 2 and taking Dauntless off them is key in terms of, facing things like Khemri. I can remember a game against the lovely Dionysian once where I had Bretonnians, he had Khemri. And I think he forgot. He just lined up his Tomb Guardians on the line of scrimmage. And I put all my Dauntless up in his face, did all the safe things first, and then knocked every single one of them over using Dauntless, taking one of them out of the game completely. How is something like Imperial Nobility going to deal with a Khemri team when they don't have Dauntless? Do they have any hope there?
Short answer is that they don't very well. So, all of the strength for it, so Lizardmen is an awful matchup. Emery's a terrible matchup. Anything with 4 strength 4, Orcs isn't particularly good. Your only hope is to get into the situation that you described earlier, Dave, where they don't die for 5 or 6 turns, and all that the big strong team who's not very fast is doing is knocking them backwards. And with Fend, they're just standing up and then going back in and saying, "Please, sir, can I have another one?" You're not making any progress off the back of that. That's basically all you've got.
But it's a wall of Fend and Stand Firm with 2 fast hitty pieces that usually have blodge. And then, of course, the thing that Storr mentioned, but none of us have talked too much about, there's an ogre. So doesn't that solve all the problems? I mean, we didn't talk about it with the Old World Alliance team. They do have that as an option instead of the tree, and none of us talked it up. Is this the ogre's moment? Is it what makes nobility work? Is that joyful ogre? Storr, what do you think?
well, I guess you kind of have to take him because you don't have anything else really, and you need a bit of strength. You need all the guard you can get, but he's still not great, and the team's still not great.
Okay. Day, does the ogre tempt you?
I agree with Storr. I think you're in a position you feel you have to take it, but like big guys, like you don't want to be relying on a big guy, whether that's to like punch a hole or something, really, because everyone knows what's going to happen there. As soon as you're like, I need the ogre to do this one thing and punch this hole, and it's like that's guaranteed it's not going to happen in the game. Then that's so you have to take it, but I would rather have like 4 blitzers with Dauntless.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't have that as an option though. We've only
Yeah.
got that ogre, so yeah, we have to take it. Goo, are they right? If I'm starting, Old World Alliance. If I'm starting in a league with nobility, do I stay lean and mean and leave the ogre aside and just try and build from those blockers and those 2 lovely blitzers, or do I need to put that ogre in?
I think I started with him, as far as I remember. I mean, he doesn't solve your problem, but he looks like he might solve your problem, and that gives both you and your opponent enough to think about to make it worthwhile, I think.
Okay, so we can't rely on him because he's a big guy, but we probably think we need him there. Of the other 3, they're sort of people love them, and I don't quite get it. I don't even like the models. I think the hilarious comedy fat bodyguards and the feathers all over the place. It doesn't do it for me, but it really seems to tickle some people's fancy. They seem to have arrived and been quite welcome. If this is the closest to Bretonnians, which were quite widely liked, that we're going to get, is everyone happy with them, or do we think they need a change?
I think they're fine. We need teams that aren't that good.
Okay.
I think they've got enough going for them that it does. So we've been very negative about them, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But they've got more than enough going for them to make them interesting and fun. That's great. I think it's a real shame they're in the box, because if you're a new player, you're not Blood Bowl, and these guys got Fen, this guy's got Stand Firm. Like it's all very. It's a bit much, I think, for a newer player.
So as the 2 teams in the box, we're
Yeah.
not putting Blood Bowl's best foot forwards. We're not showing them the fun, easy stuff.
You just want a dirt simple, don't you? Ideally, for your first game.
Yeah, I like in the old
yeah.
box.
Yeah.
But they couldn't do humans and orcs again, could they? They had to do something different.
Yeah, but they could have done different teams. Didn't have so Fend and Stand Firm and Grab. They're all very. Unless it's Tuesday and the moon is full, do this.
Well, not anymore because there's
Yeah.
teams full of it, or full of
I
something.
mean, that's the only thing that nobility is going for them. For me, you can go to a tournament, and every second block you take, you can shout, "Haha, you can't follow," or "Haha, you can't push him."
Right, so
And
it's mostly
that's
about being
about
an
it.
annoying idiot.
That's
And
my
they are.
thing.
They're a stymie team, aren't they? Where they control the field by preventing you doing what you want to do. So the obvious ways around that are either to be bigger than them and smash them to pieces as they try and do that, or to be elfier than them and just don't, to go somewhere else. All right, I won't go that way. I'll go this
Yeah.
way then, which is presumably what they suffer to. Do they have any answers to elves?
Not
Not really.
terrific
No.
number of answers. No.
Wow.
I mean, if you can keep the blitzers free, I suppose you can chase down a particularly large number of answers. If you can move the stand firm in such a way that it makes it tricky for elves to get around you, great. But again, eventually elves are just going to sort of mark everything, and you can't dodge everybody.
Wow. So we're not huge fans. Let's move on. What about Renegade or Pact, as I would call them, because I'm old and I reserve the right to not change anything. Nothing should ever change. Chaos Renegades. Are we loving them, and are we loving the fact they've now got 4 big guys to choose from, and the weirdest
Yes.
thrower in the history of
Yeah.
Blood Bowl?
They're the
Yes.
team that I'm really looking forward to get my hands on next, probably.
What's exciting you about them?
I just want to like punch people with big guys, and because I started playing not long after Blood Bowl 2016 came out, and obviously if you're playing in the tabletop scene there and then you go on to Blood Bowl 2, you don't really see them. So I think these will be there'll be a lot of people excited about these. And yeah, you get big guys and punch things, and even if they're rubbish, they're fun.
Okay, I'm just very briefly going to pull that roster up because some people don't know it. There we go. So
We have a rat ogre.
yes, we have access to up to 12 human renegade linemen. They've got the standard 6, 3 plus, 4 plus, 9 plus, and come with no skills. They're basically bog standard humans. They come at 50k, but as well as general, they have mutation access on standard rolls and secondaries of agility and strength. There's a human renegade thrower, which is 6, 3, 3 plus, 3 plus, 9 plus. He comes with animosity to all teammates, but he does come with both pass and safe pair of hands, which is a really interesting skill. There's a renegade goblin, which is also animosity to all teammates, but a goblin. A renegade orc, which is an orc lineman with animosity to all teammates. A Skaven renegade, again animosity to everything, which is another Skaven lineman. And then a dark elf lineman is the dark elf renegade. That also has animosity to all teammates. They can then choose any 3 of the following 4 big guys. So they gain access to a renegade troll, a renegade ogre, a renegade minotaur, and a renegade rat ogre, all of which have access to strength on primaries and to agility, general, and mutations on secondaries. So that's the current roster. Should people be excited? Is it going to be fun? Is it going to be dominating how they think about Blood Bowl? 3 big guys, triple the fun.
Yes.
Very simple answer there.
Which big guys then, Store? And why?
Um, you need to take the rat ogre and the minotaur, and then your free choice. And then you only need 1 secondary skill, and you have 3 frenzy big guys, which is definitely what you want.
Shouldn't you just be coaching corn if you really want frenzy everywhere?
Yeah, maybe. No, really, you take the ogre and the troll, and then the rat ogre, and then you have an orc lineman that the rat ogre can eat, so he does what you want.
So he comes with AV9, doesn't he? So that's fantastic. If you're going to eat your own player, eat one with AV9. There's a much better chance it doesn't get smushed. Are
I think
you taking it
Pact
on
is
your
pretty
Dark Elf
cool.
thrower, or are you bringing the Renegade thrower? Your Dark Elf lineman, I should say.
Well, in progression, I'd leave the thrower at home and just carry with the dark elf. In enough style, you can think about the thrower for the for the leader caddy.
Right, so a cheap leader skill.
Yeah, because rerolls are quite expensive for them.
And then with pass, you're going to carry on him and use the Dark Elf as a receiver?
Only on short drives.
Okay. So still on the Dark Elf if you possibly can. And then you've got
Yes,
things
of
like
course.
the Skaven and the Rat,
Um,
the Skaven and the Goblin as receivers, which are pretty quick pieces too. Phil, are you a lover of the Pact? Are you a renegade in your core?
There'll always be Pact to me, the same as you. Of the sort of cut and shut teams where we've chopped a sprue together from various other things, this is my favourite. I think them having three big guys is tremendous good fun until it isn't good fun anymore. I think the Dark Elf gives them something that Old World and Underworld don't really have. Although Underworld do have a gutter runner, I suppose, but a Dark Elf's a little bit more robust. Yeah, I think they're the most fun of all of the sort of union teams, as it were.
And are you loving all the little positionals? Do you take the Rat, the Goblin? I mean, obviously, I think the Orc lineman everyone takes now for line of scrimmage duty and to get eaten by things you want to eat it and activate. But are the
Yeah, I
rest all
haven't
useful
used them.
too?
I haven't used them in 2020 yet, but in 2016, I did not take the Skaven, but I did take Zahag at every opportunity that I could because he's coolest star player.
Very
But
true.
I think these days I probably would take one of everything. To Store's point, I think the leader caddy is worth having. I think of a massive hypocrite with. So I think speed is everything, and I was reading a thing on Fumble, the worst positional thread at the minute,
Yeah.
and people were saying, I'm going to take human linemen over the blockers on Old World because they're faster and they're just as expensive and whatever. And I sort of sucked my teeth a bit and thought, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have that extra armor just for the bits where you need to get a hit? And I have that dichotomy with the Skaven lineman in that, my brain thinks speed is everything, and then I think, oh, but when he gets hit, that's the end of him.
Yes, AV7 is massively worse than AV8, isn't it? Catastrophically so often. And it does mean you really can't base or need to be incredibly selective about when you do it. But the rest of them at AV8, they're pretty good at taking a hit, I find. They don't disappear. It's like Slan, I always felt were the same. You want them to be a lot squishier than they actually end up being when you face them. And at the end of the game, you look down and maybe you've removed 3, and you think, well, hang on, I hit them a lot. How come only 3 have gone? Whereas if that was Skaven, it would be 5 or 7 that have gone. So I do find that's holding them up. But they really aren't that good. I mean, they are a cut and shut team of various bits put together, Day. Why are you excited by them?
I don't know.
Is
I
it just
think
like fidget spinners? Are we going to turn out you're going to have a draw full of Chaos
Just-
Renegades in 6 months' time that
just
you never
hidden
touch
away,
again?
yeah. No, I think for me, it's like I said before. I've not had as much chance to play them. I know, obviously, that I could have, but I think there'll be a lot of players really excited because of that. Just because new is always at least interesting, even if it's not. It doesn't look loads of fun. Like I said, it sounds very brutish, but 3 mighty blow hits a turn or 2, and if that's always nice. And I like teams where there's you could have a discussion that I think whether right or wrong or you agree, I think you could have an argument for just having all the human marauders on your team, if not for nothing else because it'd be fun. Some people really wouldn't want that, which is fine. But I like teams where you have a few options. So you could there's a debate on do you take the Skaven lineman. Some people really want it. So it's fun to see what other people do with it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've come across teams. They used to be famously, before they changed the current iteration, there was a coach on Fumble that would keep them extremely low TV with 0 re-rolls rostered. A leader caddy instantly on one of the Renegades, and then really just try and get claw pom as soon as possible on 1 or 2 pieces whilst keeping everything else absolutely as lean as possible, and spinning into brand new teams with it and absolutely wrecking them. They don't feel quite that toxic to me anymore now that the skill access has dried up on those Marauders. But there's still the chance of just sort of throwing mutations all over your human renegades, isn't there? And building that way with some cheap random mutations. I wonder if we'll be seeing that happening. But they're not rocking the win stats, certainly, despite the number of big guys they have available. And I am being corrected in the chat. Yes, we should be saying, of course, AV 8 plus and 9 plus, because everything is new and different.
Never. It's always going to be a go for it.
It's a rush, Phil. It's a rush.
No.
There will come a time where you'll sit opposite some young Blood Bowler and you'll say GFI and they'll say, I don't know what you mean.
It's happened.
Wow.
It's happened. These are crazy times to be alive.
It is crazy indeed. And then they'll change back in 3 years' time because someone that likes GFI gets in charge of the rules. Where are Chaos Renegades headed? Are they... I mean, Underworld I used to call underwhelmed because they were such a joke. And I never kept my eye on them. Suddenly they made one little change, which we think was entirely based around the cheapest way of putting the sprues into a box and selling them. And they've become a dominant force in Blood Bowl. Are Renegades suddenly going to turn that corner? Store.
Well, I wouldn't call adding a gutter runner to a team a tiny change, but...
Is it the gutter runner or is it swarming? I think swarming's the big chunky.
Is it? I mean, perhaps we
Makes
do an
them-
episode on solving Underworld because they are, in all formats, in all ways, even when the stars get taken away, they seem to be doing well. Very, very well.
I mean, yeah, the snottings and the swarming is great, but the gutter runner is also pretty amazing.
Yeah, if you
And
added a
two
gutter
things
runner.
together obviously do a lot.
Well, I mean, I always come back to that in NAF style before this change. What would Underworld coaches always hire? They would always hire themselves a gutter runner. So the fact that they're now given a gutter runner, I think they've got what they always dreamed of, which is a fast piece. It's cost them one of their 2 storm vermins, but I think every Underworld coach I know would have taken that before the deal was done, and certainly now afterwards. But it's so hard to know because there were so many changes at once.
Nope.
Oh, we've lost Store. Hopefully he'll be back. There were changes obviously to what made up the team. So the gutter runner came in, the snotlings came in, and that added swarming, and then also stars, and they were tiered in interesting ways at the start of this rule set. So we saw lots of star use with Underworld as well. Separating out the noise from the impact of those 3 different massive changes can be very, very hard to do. But anyway, they're not necessarily one of the 4 I wanted to focus too much on this evening. There is one left. We've left it till last. They are the worst. They are terrible, aren't they, Black Orcs?
Yeah.
So why don't people hate them? Because I love Black Orcs. And don't you?
I love them.
Okay, that's what I want to hear right now.
didn't-
Phil, don't you love Black Orcs despite how terrible they are?
No,
No.
I can't bring myself to love them. Sorry.
Where's the fun and joy in your heart?
It's
I
in nobility. That's where it is.
Okay, all right. I'll give you something there. You did say you love nobility. Dado, why do you love Black Orcs? This terrible, awful race that can't win Blood Bowl games.
I don't know, to be honest. I think I try and analyze it, and I'm just there like going, no, they're terrible. I don't know why. They appeal to some part of me. I played a very foul heavy play when I played in a league with them, and I had a lot of fun doing that. But that's obviously very hit and miss. I just like having big guys. I think like a load of strong players, and I have like 3 fun turns before everyone's run away from them, and I can't hit anything. But I enjoy those 3 turns a lot.
I mean, strength is much harder to get in this rule set. So to have 6 strength 4 players right out of the box, able to absolutely dominate the space with that strength, even if they don't come with block, it is incredibly alluring, incredibly strong. And then to have fast, dodgy, even if they're stunty, little fast, dodgy pieces, fairly cheap, to run around and do the balling for you. And that's why people love lizards, and they're a good team, and we know what to do with them. And then we get Black Orcs, which are slower, shitter, and much, much worse. Why do we need them?
I think looking at them... Sorry.
Oh, go on.
I was going to say, I think looking at... Because that's the comparison I saw a lot of people making, was like lizards, and that's why I picked them up first, because I played a lot of lizards. But I think you need to get out of that mindset, because they're not, and that you won't be playing them the same way.
They're not shit lizards, because they look a lot like shit lizards to me.
They do, and they are shit lizards. But if you go into it thinking I'm going to play these like lizards, you'll have a bad time, and that might be why a lot of people are losing with them.
So let's bring in Mr. Meta. Store, I'm glad to see you back. How do we not play Black Orcs like shit lizards? What are we doing with Black Orcs? What's the plan? What's the idea?
I played them yesterday in a tournament, and I can confirm they are not shit lizards. They are awful lizards. And I mean, you gotta do a lot more hitting than with lizards. You gotta use the brawler and the grab to get all the hits in you can, and then foul with your sneaky git goblin.
Right, so
And hope
passing them
that,
from one to the other using the grab skill.
yeah, exactly. And you can dominate the sidelines with your grab, because there's always something to watch out for. You can grab them around and do some nice serves if the opponent isn't careful. But they're so slow that you can't allow yourself to like go to the left, bash around a few turns, and then go to the middle and switch sides, because you just can't. Just too slow.
Yes, I heard
So
someone else alleging that. Phil, do you agree that one of the big problems with Black Orcs is they are not responsive?
Oh yeah, they've got absolutely no get out of jail free card. There's no mechanism to cope with disaster whatsoever. Like
yeah,
Plan A has to work, and if Plan A does not work, game over. I think there is some benefit to them, right? I think Brawler is one of the benefits of the new rule set. I think it's a lovely skill. I think that's a really nice interaction. I think if Pete W were watching this, he'd be shouting at us and telling us we're idiots, because he is a dreamer that loves the idea of using grab to pass a guy 5 along and then surf him.
Yes.
The one in 1,000 games where that happens, you feel like a genius. So that's a good thing about Black Orcs. Yeah, they're just so slow and they're so unresponsive, and it takes forever to get enough skills on them to make them in any way passable. But like the other teams that we've discussed this evening, playing against them can be a bit of a pain, right? You line up a troll and 6 Black Orcs, and suddenly it's actually quite sticky to get all the way around.
But the minute you do, they're not going to be able to do anything about it.
That's
yeah.
game over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if
I mean,
you lose the ball with them and someone picks it up, then what are you gonna do to get it back? Like, if you haven't removed enough, they're just gonna base all mens, and then you're standing there, you can block them, nice. They have the ball and you can't get to them.
and you can't throw all your goblins at them. Doesn't that work?
Yeah, great idea.
Yes, I mean
They
goblins.
don't.
Goblins I love, but they're not particularly brilliant at safety play, are they? They're not the piece that's going to tackle back and solve the problem for you.
Yeah,
Because for a start, you need 3 of them to do it, and secondly, they're really terrible at it, even when you've got 3 of them to do it.
and
So
you probably don't even have that many, because if you got sacked, then you probably lost a goblin, at least for a turn.
because
And
they're
then
doing
you
your
have
ball carrying.
Yeah, and then you have 3 more only if no other goblin got hit earlier or isn't somewhere else,
Right, so on a
and they're not
goblins
that
team, I
fast,
might be
so
able to
they
put
can't cover the whole
5 or
pitch.
6 goblins into getting that ball back. But as you said, on Black Orcs, I've only got 4. Probably 1 got knocked over to get the ball free. So only if the other 3 have magically survived this late in the game have I probably got enough goblins to be actually responsive to anything that's picked the ball up and run off with it. Fascinating, and yet, without any of those strong pieces on the field, it's going to be even worse, isn't it? So
Yeah,
those 6 Black Orcs and the Troll have to dominate the entire field without any help, really, from the goblins.
yeah, and even more than lizards, you really have a problem if 1 or 2 Black Orcs get removed, because even more than with lizards, you're dependent on your Black Orcs, on your strength 4 pieces to punch a way through and to cover the pitch and protect the other players, because you can't make up with speed for it.
Yes, I'm always reminded, Phil, when I coach AV9, that it's not AV9 with thick skull, and it isn't as reliable as AV9 with thick skull. Although more reliable, of course, than AV8. And AV7, I don't know why they do that to themselves.
Because we're all masochists. When nobility all evaporate and you lose, you magnificent until that point. Black Orcs fall over themselves. You were never magnificent.
Yeah,
And no,
Black
and
Orcs.
yet I remember when Simians became an actual team that in a couple of divisions on Fumble were available. Simians, for those that don't know them, were a team of monkeys. Oh no, I shouldn't call them that. Great apes, aren't they? So they were bonobos, gorillas, orangutans, and chimps. So the four that are the closest relations to humans. And they were as a Blood Bowl team. So the orangutan was the thrower, and the gorillas were the blockers. You know, the big strong ones. And the bonobos, I think, were off having sex in the corner, but with aligned chimps. And it all sounded fun, and they all had extra arms so that they could throw the ball around between them and things. And they similarly had grab on the strength 4 gorillas, and coaching them was so frustrating. It sounded fun, it looked fun, you saw the design, you thought, oh, that looks fun. And then you put it up against any other Blood Bowl team, and it fell apart instantly, was zero fun. And they all spent every turn just on the floor. And yet with Black Orcs, I don't get that same frustration. I see it all going wrong. The ball disappears. I've done one foul and I got sent off and they didn't get hurt. So why are people still enjoying a team that is clearly terrible at Blood Bowl, really suffering in all the win stats? And yet people talk all the time about how fun Black Orcs are and what a great addition they've been. Now, I love the fact there isn't power creep. And perhaps a whole different episode we've got to talk about Amazons and power creep. Because people are really worried about it because we've had one team that's come in at the top rather than mid place or bottom. Black Orcs certainly aren't power creep. They're awful. Why aren't more
Amazons
people
aren't
hating
either,
on them?
but
I think they've got. I look at the 4 teams, the new teams, and I think 3 of them have got character, and one of them is Old World Alliance. Like that doesn't, like. So even though they're terrible, like they have their thing, like they have their gimmick, they stick to it. So you know what you're getting yourself into, and so you kind of like have your own fun that way. You're probably expecting not to win games of Blood Bowl if you're playing Black Orcs, but you are gonna, like you say, you're gonna feel like a genius that one turn when you get a really nice surf, and that's probably what you're playing for in that sort of time. I was playing it because I really wanted to play a fouling game, and they're really good at that, especially with the buff to guard. They can do that quite well. So I think it's the character of the team rather than how good they are.
Now, you like me are famously not a big painter, Purplegoo. Fumble Krista said he thinks one of the reasons for the love for them might be because the figures are so good. That Games Workshop really knocked it out of the park with a set of figures that everybody loves and gives them real character and charisma. And hence everyone's putting up with this absolute dross of a team because the little miniatures are nice. Does that make any sense?
I think it's an interesting theory. I mean, like, I think, isn't it sad that all these new players come into the game, get Black Orcs out of the box, and have to put up with them? I have got a set that I bought off eBay that were painted, and they look pretty enough to me with my wooden eyes, but they don't help me over their obvious deficiencies. I think Day Day's hit the nail on the head. They've got some character to them in a way that some other races that already exist in the game and Old World Alliance don't really have a lot of character. I don't think Underworld have got any character. I just think they're just irritating. And Black Orcs, okay, they're terrible, but they're terrible in a sort of interesting and idiosyncratic way.
Store, is it fine to have something like Black Orcs? Is it are they just there so that you can sit down and go, brilliant, I've already won this when the opponent pulls Black Orcs out, or are they necessary to Blood Bowl? Are they going to be a good thing long term?
well, what is really necessary to Blood Bowl? Like, what race would we miss if it wasn't there? I don't know.
Dwarfs.
But,
Dwarves.
I thought you'd say that. That's for another episode, I guess. No, I think Black Orcs are fine. They're not great, but they're interesting. They have a gimmick with brawl and grab, and it's an interesting gimmick as opposed to like all the stand firm and fend of the Imperial Nobility. That's just sometimes annoying to play against, but not really something you think about and okay, I can have all the stand firm and fend, well, hey. But with the Black Orcs, you're thinking, I can do something cool with grab, and I can foul some players, and that's interesting. I think the only problem with them is that it can be sometimes a bit frustrating for the opponent if the fouling works, but that's mainly a problem with how Sneaky Git works and less with what Black Orcs are.
Are they able to put down a claim as one of the better fouling teams? I mean, there's a lot of foulers out there in this rule set.
They've got a lot that help them. Like I say, the guard helps. Having agility access on goblins helps. They're also, they've got the bribery and corruption special rule, so they get their bribes for 50k.
And they
so
have grab.
Yeah, and grab. So you get hold of something. You just basically, and my plan was just basically to chuck everything into taking this piece off. So I would I would hit it as many times as I can, not let it out, and then foul it, and then rinse and repeat. And then if all my goblins got sent off, and we just tried to pick the ball up with a Black Orc because we weren't planning on scoring anyway.
Sure. So they can play hyper aggressively and they can use the fouling game, but they can't respond to things like breakthroughs.
No.
Interesting, and yet, they are doing incredibly badly. Now, these 4 races, we have differing amounts of love for all of them. I mean, I love Black Orcs. Still, I'm not tempted by Old World Alliances, despite seeing the win rates. Nobility, I think they're quite fun, and the feathers, I'm not over them, but I guess they have to look like something. And Renegades, I do think are more interesting with this iteration of them. Now that it's a little harder to build those huge, nasty kill stacks on them, and they've got a little more interest, a little more things going on that you can try and build around. We didn't talk very much about the Terrible Thrower, which was on that list of the worst possible pieces still of positionals in Blood Bowl at the moment. For me, I think the Dark Elf Assassin is still quite hard to beat for just utterly, utterly pointless.
He's okay now.
He's better now. Yeah.
I know you can have those nice stabs with him, and he is that little bit quicker, but it's just there's so much that you want to buy on a Dark Elf team as it is that I just struggle to ever want to buy him.
People taking the assassin to NAF tournaments.
Even
the
good
Euro
players.
Bowl even.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have one myself, but I think...
Yeah. I saw
wouldn't
Pete
either.
do it, and I had a Sneaky Git instead, and I wrecked teams with mine.
I looked at that list, and I thought, actually, if you consider all the formats of the game, none of these are useless. I thought that was quite interesting, because in previous versions of the game, there were certainly useless players.
A safe pair of hands is a very interesting skill to get sacked whilst having. And I do think Renegade throwers get sacked a lot, so that might come into some really handy use. But I still don't want to. I've always said this to people who put Fend on their runners and ball carriers and things. I understand why. I personally do not build a team assuming that my ball carrier is going to get sacked a lot. I build a team to stop my ball carrier getting sacked a lot, rather than to mitigate it when it happens. Now, one more graphic I do want to show. I don't know if you're aware of this particularly, Phil, or indeed Store. I'm sure Day is all over this. When it launches, we will have a limited number of races with Blood Bowl 3. Specifically, these 12. Oh, I just have to pull it up. That was why. There we go. So those are the 12 races, including, look, I've done a very professional job of highlighting the ones.
Blue Peter, this. Excellent.
Yeah, for some reason it's not showing. There we go. Let me just adjust it slightly. So we have Black Orcs, Chaos Renegades, Imperial Nobility, and Old World Alliance. They're going to drop into a soup of only 8 other teams, those being Chaos Chosen, Dark Elves, Dwarves, Elven Union, Humans, Nurgle, Orcs, and Skaven. So let's help the One World, One Blood Bowl viewer, listener, and participant get ahead of the rest of the Blood Bowl 3 community by simply telling them which of those are going to help them dominate, considering these 4 races are in. There's only those 12 races. These are the 4 new ones. The other 8, they already know how to play. Which one should they be coaching to get their wins over Old World Alliance, Pact, Bobs, and Nobs? Store, who's going to dominate?
Is Bomber in at launch?
I'm not sure we're certain. But if he is, he certainly won't have his special ability in. Or his stats will be there, his skills will be there, but he won't be going kaboom.
Well, the special ability is not what makes him good, in my opinion. It's 2+ passing all over it. I think the old classics are gonna dominate here. Orcs are pretty good. Skaven are good. Dark Elves are good.
I think
Nurgle
specifically of those three, Skaven are better.
Yeah, in progression though, and you're gonna have a lot of MNGs. You're
That's
not gonna
true.
do that
With
well.
new terrible apothecaries, we're all going to roll with bigger squads and missing players, aren't we?
Yeah, and with Skaven, they are pretty damn good. But if half of your gutter runners are missing all the time, then they're not that good anymore.
Okay.
So I think Orcs are gonna be at the forefront, and Dark Elf.
Yes, I was going to say Dark Elves haven't been mentioned yet. Shouldn't they do all right in this against those four?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
they'll do fine.
they're great.
And I'm picking one of those four because I'm new to Blood Bowl 3 and I'm excited by the new races. So I want to try something new. Which one should I pick and not end up just getting beaten by everybody else who's maining dwarves and dark elves and rats and orcs and just thrashing people playing with the new teams? Is it?
Well,
Are we really saying that of these four, it's Old World Alliance people should be trying? That they'll get a reasonable, happy feeling and an occasional win with that bunch of rubbish?
Apparently, if you
Yeah.
trust the numbers, and I'm not sure that I do trust the numbers, I think
Follow your
I think,
heart, Phil, not the numbers. Numbers can't tell you what your heart is feeling.
oh well, if it was my heart, it'd be
Pact.
just take nobility, nothing else. But
Okay.
I think that once we've got a few million games under our hats of the new rules, as if that's ever going to be a thing, I think things will move about, and I would bet 50 pence of your money, Purple Chest, that Pact are better. I think
Okay.
Pact are better. They're all not very good. Pact are the best, not very good one.
Even
And
over
they're
Old
fun.
World Alliance, despite the statistics?
Yeah, because as far as I'm aware, in the Sinai game, there's not going to be redrafting.
Yeah.
So I don't think when you get above 1300, 1400, I don't think Old World Alliance are going to benefit from that treatment, all those crap dwarves with guard as much. I think Pact will take over.
Day, we've horrified Store into leaving us with this talk of nobility perhaps being fun. Which of those four are you picking up? Which one do you think I can do this? Even with dwarves and orcs and Skaven, I can do this.
I think I agree. I think Pact. If you're wanting to like try and be competitive, because I think also with the taking randoms meta, like I'm not saying like you should definitely do that if you're wanting to try and be efficient, but you'll see people. I think with Pact, you're going to have more scope. Just the mutation access means you're going to have those ridiculous low TV like claw teams as well, and that will be Pact. So as soon as that happens, essentially your tough teams, their win rate drops because orcs, Nurgle, dwarves, they'll struggle against that, especially if someone has been really lucky and rolled, loads of random claw and stuff like that, because law of numbers means there'll be one or two running around. I think Old World Alliance will do fine, but I agree. I think they kind of tail off, and I think they'll do very well in like the first like 5-10 games, and then I think they'll struggle. And then Black
Despite
Orcs,
looking at those stats all week as I prepared for this, and despite being the sort of tryhard that quite likes his wins, I'm still not tempted by Old World Alliance. There's nothing there I go, well, brilliant, I'll do it this way and that'll be fun. I would much rather turn Imperial Nobility into a sort of team that can go somewhere, I think. I think for me that's the one. But none of us are talking up poor Black Orcs. Does something need to get done? Do they need the point of movement that was given to Big Guns, for example? And Orcs can lose it because they're doing fine.
I would love that, but I don't think I'm not sure if it would just be the best thing for the game, just like throwing stats at a problem. But it would have helped me in my league games, definitely.
Do they need something, Phil?
Well, you keep saying, rightly, I think, that people love them and they've got character.
Yeah.
So that they are crap is not a problem. It's great.
Yeah.
We can have, as far as I'm concerned, we can have infinite races that are crap character.
And you're not going to coach them.
I'm going to coach some of them. It's not Black Orcs.
I think it matters. Like, you've got to ask yourself a question going into Blood Bowl 3 of how do you have fun playing Blood Bowl? Like, it's all well and good going win rates, and because everyone likes to win. Anyone who says they don't want to win is lying. But if you're someone who is happy just to play a team for its character, then I would say go for Black Orcs, because I think you'll have fun with it. Do I think you'll win loads of games? No, but you'll enjoy the game even a little bit more. If you are wanting to, win as many games as possible, then you're probably looking towards Old World or Pact a bit more.
On Blood Bowl 3, I want to look that dwarf coach across the screen, and I want to know they're crying in their heart as I beat them. How am I going to do that with one of these 4 races? Is it Renegades and big guy them to death?
Perversely, Black Orcs might be the one, mightn't they?
Yeah, if it's dwarves.
Especially late on. Early on, even.
Just because that strength and that grab control,
Yeah.
fouling key pieces out if you get hold of one of the runners or a slayer or something with the lower armour. Yeah, maybe so. I do think it's going to be interesting. I think these 4 teams have got quite a brutal time coming up. But I also think people are going to flock towards them as the joy of the new. And then someone's going to sit around on Dark Elves with a 30-game unbeaten streak as they just take that ball away. But it is coming. These are the teams of the future. I'm really excited by Blood Bowl 3. We'll see if it comes about. But of course, all these teams are available right now to be coached on Fumble or on Tabletop. There's all sorts coming up this year. Any thoughts about the World Cup? Are you going? What are you taking? What are you preparing for in your 2023 head? As we come towards the end of the show, let's see if Store gets back before the end. Just some final thoughts. Where are you going this year? Which teams are you taking with you? Day.
So sadly, I'm probably not going to the World Cup. Just for financial reasons. I'd love to go, but I don't think that's going to happen for us this year. In terms of where we're going, sort of thing, we do have some of the bigger tournaments in the UK that we are still going to. So we're going to Water Bowl in a couple of weeks, and I don't think I'll be taking any of these teams this year. I might take Black Orcs, as I've said, but I am actually, if I was to take one, or if you like gun to my head right now, it'd actually be Imperial Nobility, because I've not played them yet, and I want to try them out, and so maybe they'll turn up. Maybe I'll turn up with one of them. I don't really have much of a plan at the moment. I'm just kind of seeing where we go, like see how the Blood Bowl treats us, and
you said you had been coaching Black Orcs. Are they what you're taking into the next season of your Tabletop?
No, because I think also in my Tabletop league, I really benefited from coming in like halfway through, because everyone started at 1,000 TV, so there wasn't any monster 1,800 teams. But I did get a fair whack of inducements, and we did have a league star player that had Dirty Player and a special rule that allows you to have Sneaky Git once if you get caught. So he helped. So I think I'll be trying something new in the next Tabletop league, but
okay.
I don't know what that is yet.
Waiting for inspiration to strike you.
Yeah, exactly. Or the panic as it comes up is usually the other way.
I look forward to seeing you presumably at the UKTC in a couple of months' time, if not.
Yes. I'll be there.
If we don't do something about the Water Bowl, I mean, someone accused me earlier, I think it was you, Phil, of being both parochial and English in my mindset, and also only talking about the tournaments I go to. Yes, that's because it's my show, and those are the ones I'm going to. But yes, I should definitely get some people on to talk about things I don't go to. Dungeon Bowl, I would love to be at one year. I think I've got a free ticket waiting for me. But it just always clashes with not being in Germany and having a life. So when those aren't true, I would love to get out there. The Las Vegas Open, I've got lots of friends at, which I think is coming up, if not this weekend, then maybe next weekend. There's loads of good Blood Bowl going on around the world that we're not talking about enough. Store, we're in the closing moments. I've just been asking you, what is your plan? What are you coaching and looking forward to in 2023? Whilst you get your head around that, I'm just going to ask Phil. Phil, what's the race that's tickling your fancy, and where are you heading with it this year?
I will be doing my normal sort of UK circuit, so Monkey Bowl, Water Bowl, KCC, NAF Championship, my usual sort of stops. I'll probably do a European one in addition, a European team one, be it Bilbao or Lutece or German Team Bowl, one of the big Europeans, and I will be at the World Cup. I've not decided what race yet. So the last 3 World Cups of taken Lizardmen, and we've been trying to do as best we can. And I think at the top end, the meta had evolved to the point where top end Euros had decided that fouling all the Lizardmen and making them go away was the best way of doing it. I think that is ever more the case in the new rules. So I probably won't be doing Lizardmen this time. But I'm not decided what I'm going to land on yet. Not one of these 4.
No, not one of these 4, you don't think?
I think so. I played 3 of the 4 last year. Not at the World Cup, I wouldn't have thought.
And so, Stor, same question to you. Where are you headed with your Blood Bowl in 2023? Any team particularly tickling your fancy? Any tournament you're massively looking forward to?
Oh yeah, the World Cup, of course. And I'm also going to UKTC. That's going to be great, I think. And for races, I think after I finished playing all the races, at least once, which I need 3 or 4 more now, I'm going to play some more halflings. And for the World Cup, what my teammates were saying is like, okay, we were doing seeing what races are we going to play, and next to my name on the list was something shit until we make him play elves.
Interesting. I mean, I love watching you with halflings. It's you are so talented with them. You get win rates that are just beyond belief with them. And I think it's whereas a lot of halfling coaches are looking for that excuse as to why they lose sometimes in coaching halflings, it's a choice to protect themselves. I've never sensed that with you, and it terrifies me that you're that good with halflings that you can put that win rate against anyone with any race, and it stands comparison. Anything else anyone wants to say before we say goodbye? There is just one issue I do have to come back to. It's from a previous show. We have a callback, Mr. Purplegoo, from some of the other people in the Danish system of NAF, and they've challenged you to come and prove out in Denmark that they don't, as they would suggest, have their finger more firmly on the modern meta, and that you and the entire of Team England are not just men out of time.
I mean, again, how many times do I have to go to Denmark and them in their place? I don't know. I mean, your young contributor last time mentioned he was Danish champion. We've all been Danish champion. It's not anything to be too excited about. I love the Danes very much, and one day I would very much like to go back. Some of my favourite Blood Bowl people.
One thing that Hargrim did drop on a little bit, and I've heard Joe talk about it too a little bit, Joe Manji. Do you accept, and Stor, I'd love to bring you in on this and Day as well, as a final question away from what we've been talking about with those 4 new races, just in terms of where the meta's at right now, bombers aside, megastars, superstars aside, is this a rule set that is slightly more favouring the bash active coach, the aggressive-minded coach, over perhaps the more defensive or stability-minded coach? Are we seeing more focus on aggression?
I think we are seeing more focus on aggression. I wouldn't say that it's more a bash thing than anything. An aggressive coach rather than a passive coach makes gains in this rule set, and I think the variance in the rule set is higher, and so the sort of bell curve of results is tighter. I think a 8 out of 10 coach that plays very aggressively gets a lot more out of this rule set than they got out of the previous rule set.
Stor, do you agree? Is this the day of the aggressive play?
Couldn't have put it any better than Purplegoo.
Okay, so it's not that it's really harming other mindsets. It's that style has been favoured by some of the changes. They've got more chance, more agency with their plans.
Like multiple rerolls allows you to do more in aggressive turns, and I don't think it's much more bash heavy. Like you don't have that many options with that get you out of trouble with worse passing, but multiple rerolls kind of makes up for that.
Right, Day, let's give that final word to you. Do you agree? Is the day of aggression upon us? Should we all be looking to take more agency, more action, perhaps get up in people's faces a little bit more with our Blood Bowl?
I think so, but I'm quite aggressive anyway in my play style. So I actually haven't played loads of passive teams. So that answer might change in 6 months. But I think there's a lot of little things that have like contributed towards it. So like, guard now helping on fouling and sneaky git being buffed means that there is a more like aggressive play style, and then I don't think it's like I said the passing nerf it maybe hasn't hurt all the time, but it does mean that the passive player has one less weapon in their arsenal. And I
Now,
think
I will ask you to forgive him, dear listener. You know who you are, the person that complains to me every single time somebody on this show says that passing has been nerfed. I accept that passing for some races has moved sideways. Yes, pro elves can throw the ball as well as they ever did, particularly if they get the cannoneer skill. And yes, Khemri in some way could be seen as better at passing. But I think most people sort of think of it in 2020 as a passing nerf. If that triggers you, I'm afraid it is just you. You're going to have to get over it. Sorry, Day, I just had a chance to drop that in.
I think it absolutely is a passing nerf, but that's another debate for another time.
Well, it is. Like I said, there's at least one person who will not leave me alone. When passing nerf is said on this show, I get a message every single time. So there we are. Thank you for coming on, guys. I think the message we're putting out there is kind of a bleak one. These four are not great races. If you're someone that loves Wood Elves and has recently just found you're not enjoying them so much, but find you're really enjoying Underworld now on tabletop, then probably these four are ones to avoid. If you're a win monkey that only loves those statistics of high win rates, perhaps these ones are ones to wait on. That said, they can be loads of fun. And it turns out Old World Alliance are much, much better than we all think they are, though none of us can really tell you why. But they're somehow getting really good win rates. They've all got flavour to them. I think none of them look out of place or feel out of place in Blood Bowl, at least not to me. Your mileage may vary. So if you do get a chance to try them on Blood Bowl 3 or Tabletop, give them a go. They're all really flavoursome and fun. Just don't expect to be dominating things with them unless, you've got the sort of mind of a Purplegoo or of a Store. But for me and Day, we will just keep dreaming and having fun, because sometimes that can be what Blood Bowl's about too. Grabbing someone and throwing them backwards down into the middle of your pack and then kicking them in the face with a chortling goblin. That is fun, but you're probably going to lose the game. Thank you for coming along this evening. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you to my lovely panel of guests. I wish I had more time with all of them, but I don't because I talk too much. That was One World, One Blood Bowl, episode 23. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope to see you in 2 weeks' time when we're going to be talking about getting ready for the launch, what to expect when you're changing rule sets, how to forget things, how to learn things, how to be a noob again and love it. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much, and good night. I will find someone to raid you on to. I may be back playing Blood Bowl in a bit, but I'm certainly taking a break. For now, if you are staying,
Come to Turncoat.
we'll be sending you over to, why not, to the lovely, I haven't given a raid to Mr. Page for a long old time, so I'm sending you over to Mr. Page for now. Enjoy yourselves there, and One World, One Blood Bowl will be back in 2 weeks. Bye.